Hey there, Community Life Church. This week I have the very cool, literally because it's minus 35 right now, privilege of bringing you the recap for our week 7 of the Tangible Kingdom. Today I'm standing about 20 kilometers from the Arctic Circle, right out on the edge of the frozen Mackenzie River. And as I've been visiting, encouraging, and doing outreach with our missionaries in the far north of Canada, I've been thinking a lot about a question. What does it mean to be a disciple or a follower of Jesus? Usually when I think of this question, I think of things like studying the Bible, prayer, attending church, small groups, all of which are good things. But as I look at the first disciples and think about what it was like to be one of Jesus' students, I think they probably would have answered this question a bit differently. I think they might have said something like this about what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. He always tested our faith and our motives. He always took us to places we wouldn't have gone ourselves. We became friends with people we would have hated before. Looking back, it was the most wildly transforming process I could have ever imagined, and I'll never be the same. See, discipleship for the disciples was different from our idea in one major way. It actually involved following Jesus where he went and doing what he did. In our modern day, we have in many ways reduced discipleship to a passive act of being taught about Jesus. This gap between learning and action has handicapped many of our churches by producing passive disciples. We've taken discipleship off the streets and brought it into the classroom and into the church pew. While it's good to learn about becoming a disciple, there is more that can only be understood through practice. So in order to re-engage the discipleship process, we need to look at another word that better captures the essence of discipleship today. That word is apprenticeship. So to be someone's apprentice means to go and learn on the job alongside them. For me personally, this is exactly how I've learned many of the different construction trades I do to this day. And it's actually very common in many different professions. As an apprentice, someone else passes on their practical working experience and knowledge in a setting where you not only learn it but you get to apply it and try it right away. So to kick off our discussion together tonight, I'd love to invite you to answer these two questions. What are some examples of apprenticeships that you've been part of? And what are some of the differences between apprenticeships and classroom learning? Throughout the Gospels, there are numerous accounts of apprenticeships in action. We often refer to this process as discipleship because the disciples were among those being trained. But the problem is that what we call discipleship today is nothing like what they went through. The disciples of Jesus were being trained by living example, and they were being trained in action, not just in theory. I've often find it surprising how much of our discipleship training is focused on learning head knowledge with very little emphasis on the practical implementation of the knowledge. Not only has discipleship become passive, but it's also been tailored to fit our consumer lifestyle. In most of our contexts, it costs us very little to become a disciple. All it takes is attending a class, completing a workbook, or finishing a program. Even as I travel and visit our missionaries serving here in the NWT, I'm personally challenged with how little it costs me. So I think what we need is a new definition of discipleship. What if discipleship became a real apprenticeship in community? If we want to live out the full Christian life and take on the challenge of Jesus to go and make disciples, then something has to change. It will only happen when we live life in community, out on mission, displaying and declaring the gospel, and making more apprentices of Jesus that truly grow. Sitting in a classroom or a living room week after week will never produce the kind of radical transformation that the kingdom calls us to. So as we break for more discussion, I'd like to invite you to answer this question. In what ways is this picture of discipleship or apprenticeship different than how you've thought about it in the past? You see, discipling people is not just the pastor's job. It's a call for every person who calls themselves a follower of Jesus. It's not meant to be something that's an added weight to put on your shoulders. Discipling people is something that needs to be empowered by the Spirit, full of the gospel, lived out in community, focused on serving people's needs, bigger than just Sundays, centered around all of life. And it's something that we need to be willing to do over the long haul. So if apprenticeship is about becoming like Jesus, we need to start by looking at how he discipled his followers. So as you take a look at the Bible tonight and a couple of passages together, I want to invite you to observe how Jesus made disciples. Ask these questions together as you read. What were they doing? Where were they? How often? With whom? And how is this Bible passage part of Jesus making disciples?